Long years ago, we made a tryst with destiny. And now that time comes when we shall redeem our pledge. Not wholly or in full measure, but very substantially. At the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom. 15th August, 1947, midnight. India awakes to a new life of freedom. But 2 centuries of colonial rule had decayed India from within, leaving the country ridden with poverty and hunger. Our founding fathers set out to wipe every tear from every eye. They needed a pole star, that single focal point to make India modern and progressive. Something that captured the uniqueness of the chaotic but eternally hopeful nation. A bright light to illuminate the dark storm lashing the horizon of the future. The 1920s was an uncertain period for the Indian national movement. And then came the Chauri Chaura incident. Mahatma had suspended the non-cooperation movement. 3rd February 1928. The Simon Commission arrives to review the Act of 1919 and was met with widespread protests as it had no Indian representation. The British, in their arrogance, proclaimed that Indians were incapable of self-rule and deciding for themselves. Lord Birkenhead, the Secretary of State, in response to the Indians' reactions, laid down a challenge at the House of Lords. The Founding Fathers rose to the occasion. An all-party conference was convened in February and May 1928. Led by Nehru, the committee drafted the Nehru Report in September 1929, demanding self-government under Dominion status within the empire. But Quaid-e-Azam, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, rejected the report, stating that from then on, Hindu and Muslim paths were different. He further countered the report with his infamous 14 points in March 1929. Meanwhile, the annual session of the INC was held in Lahore in 1929 under the presidency of Jawaharlal Nehru. They voted for the historic resolution of complete independence and declared the last Sunday of January 1930 as Independence Day. The resolution gave the British Parliament the ultimatum that if they accepted the report by 31st December 1929, Congress would adopt it as it is. If not, they would insist on complete independence. December 31st, 1929, the INC stalwarts gather around the River Ravi. The British have paid no heed to the ultimatum, and thus the Swaraj flag is proudly unfurled. The freedom fighters were prepared for the fight. It was an event so monumental, it would change the course of history itself. Elections were held in 1937. INC came into power and formed ministries in almost all provinces. For the first time under British rule, Indians could become directly associated with the government. The dream of Indians holding the power of the government and serving the masses had become a reality. But the cheer didn't last long. World War II was initiated. Congress ministries resigned in 1939, protesting Lindladgo's decision to involve India in the war without consulting the Indians. Multiple attempts of involving India in World War II failed. With its end, the decline of the British Empire became inevitable. Mutiny amongst the naval rankings and the Air Force was the final nail in the coffin. The Cabinet Mission Plan arrived in 1946 to try and reach a settlement acceptable to all major stakeholders. The plan became the foundation for the establishment of the Constituent Assembly. For a total of 2 years, 11 months and 18 days, over 11 sessions and sitting for 166 days, the Assembly debated and discussed the various challenges facing the new nation. The ideas of liberty, equality, fraternity, and justice were embedded deep into our Constitution. On 26 January 1950, the Constitution was enforced in its entirety. It is the foundation of free India, which we have become so accustomed to. It is our duty as citizens to know it, understand it, nurture it, and defend it. It is our duty to remember, so that we can build the India.
In March 1947, Earl Louis Mountbatten and his wife Edwina arrive in New Delhi. The great-grandson of Queen Victoria and second cousin to George VI, Mountbatten brings a regal presence to the drama of India's independence. As the last viceroy, he bears responsibility for India's fate.
2nd of April, 1947. I have now completed my first week in office. I should like to be able to paint an encouraging picture of my first impressions but feel it would be misleading if I did so. The scene here is one of unrelieved gloom. At this early stage, I can see little common ground on which to build any agreed solution for the future of India. The only conclusion I have been able to come to is that unless I act quickly, I may well find the real beginnings of a civil war on my hands.
By May, attempts to create a unified India have failed. Gandhi retreats from political life. Muhammad Ali Jinnah, leader of the Muslim League, and Jawaharlal Nehru of the Indian National Congress concede to divide India. Fearing a total loss of control, Mountbatten brings forward the transfer of power to August. Two nations will be created by partition, a secular India and a new homeland for India's Muslims, Pakistan. Independence, Nehru addresses the people of India.
Long years ago, we made a tryst with destiny, and now the time comes when we shall redeem our pledge. At the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom.
The 15th of August, 1947. The British Empire in India has come to an end. The last Viceroy, Louis Mountbatten.
The flag raising and the salute were done amid scenes of the most fantastic rejoicing. And as the flag broke, a brilliant rainbow appeared in the sky, which was taken by the crowd as a good omen.
Qasim Muhammad.
On the 15th of August came freedom. The freedom to burn, loot and murder. While Delhi and Karachi were celebrating, central Punjab was burning.
Between August 1947 and March 1948, 4.5 million Hindus and Sikhs are forced to migrate from Pakistan to India. 6 million Muslims must move in the opposite direction. Britons and Indians witness the bloodshed. Shahid Ahmed.
It is a battleground. People have gone mad. Trains to Pakistan are being looted and occupants slaughtered. We all knew that carnage was in the offing. So did Mountbatten. The British Empire, which tried to build India over centuries, can never live down this great tragedy.
Lieutenant Colonel Hubert Boyd Hudson.
The sight from the air was awe-inspiring. In this chaos, millions of refugees were struggling to get to India or Pakistan. Thousands of others were doing their best to prevent them, murdering them by the hundred. But death is nothing. There are things more terrible than death.
Ten million people are displaced in the partition of India. 1 million are dead. By the summer of 1948, most of the British have left. Hubert Boyd Hudson has been in India for 15 years.
India is full of ghosts. Houses I have lived in, now inhabited by Indians, remind me of the days which will never come again. When the Viceroy drove past with a cavalry escort in red coats. I have seen the greatness of the British in India, but now it is all ended. And we are the last to leave. The few who are trying to tidy up the mess which the sudden splitting of an old empire has caused.
Britain has lost its greatest imperial possession. Mahatma Gandhi once said that if India became free, the rest of the empire would follow. In the next 10 years, the fire of India's independence will spread around the globe, from the Middle East to Africa.
August the 15th, 1947, Independence Day for India. In London, the flags of the new Indian Union flutter over the headquarters of India and Pakistan. An era has ended, a new epoch begins. A subcontinent larger than the whole of Europe becomes two self-governing dominions within the British Commonwealth of Nations. After less than a century under the British Crown, India's most crucial hour has struck. 5 months ago, Earl Wavell left Delhi to be succeeded by Earl Mountbatten. Under Queen Victoria's great-grandson, the transfer of power is completed. Pandit Nehru, Congress leader, is India's Prime Minister. Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Muslim chief, becomes Pakistan's Governor-General. Baldev Singh takes over India's defense. Liaquat Ali Khan is Pakistan's first premier. The Nawab of Bhopal is one of the princes who has joined the Indian Union. Mahatma Gandhi, the 78-year-old mystic, stands inscrutable and aloof. Today, the fate of 400 million Indians is in the hands of these leaders. During the past 200 years, the British gave India law and order. They built roads and railways. They irrigated the lands. But India's future welfare largely depends upon communal harmony. 40 million Muslims will live in India, 18 million Hindus in Pakistan. Stirred by intense religious passion, communal strife has shed much blood. It still continues. Can Hindus and Muslims live peacefully together? In India, nearly everyone is hungry. When they are too frail to beg, they die. And each year, famine claims 7 million. Economically, India and Pakistan are interdependent. Success of the new regimes may ultimately depend on whether India's leaders can improve rapidly the general standard of living. To people like these, the heart of India, the word freedom is empty. To the average Indian, his rulers mean little. Democracy is just a word unheard of by the majority. This is the real challenge to Nehru and to Jinnah. Britain has fulfilled her mission. It is for India herself now to make her destiny.